Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula. Welcome back to my channel. I'm back from my trip to the UK. I mentioned in one of my previous videos that I was going on a work trip to demo the Spellbinders Glimmer machine and the new October Glimmer release to a few local stores in the UK, as well as one of the shopping channels, Hochanda. If you follow me on Instagram stories, you might have already seen some photos from the trip. It was one of the best work trips I've ever been on, probably due to the fact that the trip was to England and I really love the UK. I've not been to the UK in the fall. I have been during summer and in the winter, so it was really nice to travel there during this time of year. Anyhow, I did a lot of prep work for this trip and created 15 cards, all featuring the new October 2019 Glimmer release from Spellbinders. I demoed many of these cards on air, but I don't think I got to show them all. So I thought I would film this video tutorial and share some of the best Glimmer tips and tricks, some cool techniques, and just show you the new release and of course, lots of card ideas. My absolute favorite card is this one with the butterflies. The foil makes them look as if they are fluttering their wings and they are about to take off and fly away. This card is very easy to make, it doesn't take too much time, and there are no tricks, techniques, or special things involved. It's also very easy to mass produce if you're thinking of making it perhaps into a thank you card or something of the sort. Mine's a birthday, but the sentiment can be changed to a different one. Here are some other cards with the butterflies. Here I foiled butterflies in one color, but on different colors of cardstock, and I used one of the Spellbinders previously released Everyday Sentiments Glimmer plates for the sentiment. The other card also showcases butterflies that were foiled on colored cardstock, and here I stacked them to create dimension and interest on the card. Now, to foil the main card, you'll need to use several colors of foil. I like to work with these four and also add a gold foil to the mix. These colors are Prism, Sky Bright, Teal, and Cobalt Blue. I have used them in the same combination before to foil a very solid ombre background, and I have a video tutorial showing that. I have it linked right here if you'd like to check it out. There's also a link in the video description and a link to all of the foils and all of the plates that I'm using today if you want to get any of them for yourself. My Glimmer machine is already good and hot. I've placed my 2 butterfly plates on the platform, pressed the timer button to begin heating the Glimmer machine, and now I'm just cutting my foil to size. Now, this video is not going to show you how to use the Glimmer machine. I do have other videos that go into detail regarding that. This video assumes you already know how to use the Glimmer and will only show special tips and tricks to help you be better at foiling. Now, one of the mistakes I see people make when they foil is that they place the foil incorrect side up. It's very easy to get confused, so next time you go to place the foil, remember that pretty side foil goes to pretty side of the plate, just like so. When you place your foil correctly, it will sort of envelop the plates. It will stick down, if you will. But if you place the foil incorrect side up, the foil will curl up. The edges and the corners especially will curl up, and that should tell you that the foil is placed incorrectly. I'm just going to add my plates. I do always add 1 cardstock shim to my Glimmer machine. You don't have to do this. I do this because my die cutting machine has been well loved and well used, and I just need to add a bit more pressure. When I was doing my demos in the UK, I had a different Glimmer machine and a different die cutting machine, also the Jane Davenport one, the same one I have at home, and I did not have to add a shim. It foiled perfectly without it. So keep that in mind and don't feel like you have to add a shim. Try and see first if it foils well without the shim. Now, another thing I wanted to point out is that you will have different results with different color foils. So say you use the same kind of paper, the same Glimmer plate, the same machine, but just change the colors of the foil. Some will foil better than others. For example, this Prism foil always gives me fantastic results with minimum pressure and heat. In fact, I even have some overfoiling here. The open areas of the butterfly are covered in foil. I do apologize that this part of the footage is a little bit blurry. All that shine from the foil made it difficult for my camera to focus properly. But you can see that I'm able to easily remove the overfoiling using a dry brush. It just brushes it away. I think there are two kinds of overfoiling. The overfoiling from exposing the plate to too much heat, that's what we have here. And this kind of overfoiling is easily fixable using a dry brush. The foil will just brush off. And there's also overfoiling from adding too much pressure. I don't have an example for you to show right now, but should you add too much pressure and have overfoiling, you'll need to use a pencil eraser or a sand eraser to remove it. And again, it's easy to remove. We also tried using low-tech tape to remove overfoiling. We did that on air on Hochanda, and that works beautifully, but you have to be careful as it can also remove the actual foiled design. I'm going to continue foiling the butterflies. I want to foil 2 in each color and also 2 in gold. I won't be needing quite as many for my card, but I might as well foil more and simply save the foil butterflies and use them for some other project in the future. Now, these glimmer plates come with coordinating dies. This is one of the things I love most about them. You have the dies to cut the images out, no fussy cutting needed. We're now moving to foiling with a slightly tricky foil color. This is teal. I find that I need to add an extra shim when I foil in this color. I'm just going to foil as usual first to show you what I mean, and then I will refoil with an extra piece of cardstock to increase the pressure and get better results. Okay, we've foiled in teal foil color, and you can see how imperfect of a result we got. I did not change anything, I just used a different color foil. So I'm going to repeat the foiling. I'm using a fresh piece of foil this time, but I'm adding a cardstock shim to get better results. While Glimmer is heating the plates, I want to talk briefly about using coordinating dies. When you add the die to the foiled image, you want to use a piece of low-tech tape to tape the die to your paper, just like you would with coordinating dies and stamped images. Here, though, you need to be mindful of where you place that tape, as you don't want to overlap the foiled image. If you place the tape over the foiled image, you might peel some of that foil off when you go to remove the die and the tape. It's not going to take all of the foil off, but it will, or it might take some of it. So just be mindful of where you place the tape. Let's foil and see what it looks like, and voila, the perfect foil transfer. Now, by showing this, I want to tell you that you need not feel discouraged if you get imperfect foil transfer. Play around, add a piece of cardstock to increase the pressure, try a different brand of cardstock to foil on, try a different color foil. Get to know your supplies. The more you'll play, the better your results will be. It's like with Copic markers. Some colors just don't blend well together and require the extra blending time or an extra transition color to give a nice blend. Same with the foils. Some foils need a bit more love and a bit more pressure to give you that perfect result. With the butterflies foiled, I now need to work on a sentiment. I'm using a new happy birthday plate to foil birthday hugs and wishes on my card. These plates have been designed so that they have little notches and grooves to help you align the plates and center them. This is a really neat trick, and I'm so glad that folks at Spellbinders have thought of it. Now, these notches sort of allow you to lock the plates in place. Now, to make sure that the plates stay together, I like to flip them to the other side, the flat side up, and add a piece of low-tech tape. Next, because I want to be sure I foil in the center of my panel, in the exact spot that I want, I add another piece of tape to create a hinge, and then I transfer the plates to my cardstock panel. Now, I can either eyeball the placement or use a ruler and properly position the plates on the panel, all while using the tape to tack them down to the paper. Because I have my hinge, I am able to flip the plates away from the paper, easily add any color foil I like, and flip the plates back onto their original position. I'm using champagne foil, very pretty, subtle gold color. As always, I'm trimming the foil to size just slightly larger than my plate to avoid overfoiling. And with that done, I like to add another small piece of tape just to be extra secure. This way, nothing is going to move. Okay, it's time to foil our sentiment. I'm once again following the instructions for my Glimmer machine and foiling it. Now let's take a look. Voila, it foiled absolutely beautiful. Now I also went ahead and foiled 2 butterflies in same champagne foil. I cut them out with a coordinating die And now I have already planned the butterfly placement on the card. I just need to adhere the butterflies in place. For this, I'm using a mix of glue and foam adhesive squares. Now, the foam adhesive squares are being used mostly to add lift to the wings. They aren't actually tacking the wings down to the paper. Notice that I'm not removing the liner paper from the foam squares. I'm just adhering them to the wings so that they do not fall flat on the card and maintain that lovely dimension. I continue adding my butterflies one by one until I have the entire panel covered. And just look how gorgeous this looks. I'm looking forward to creating some home decor art with lots of pretty butterflies fluttering around a large frame. I think that's going to look just stunning. Next, I used scissors and trimmed the butterflies. I also foam mounted the panel onto an A2 white card base. I did cut the gray panel to be just a 1/4 inch shorter, so 5¼ inches, so that a bit of white card base is showing on the finished card. And now I'm just using glue and Fun Stamper's Journey Fashion Gold dots to embellish the card. I'm adding little accents here and there in the open spaces in between the butterflies on my project. And the card is finished. It really is my favorite card of all. Now here's a little trick for you. Use your main attraction magnet to pick up the plates from the glimmer machine while they are still hot. Works like a charm. Now don't touch the plates with your fingers though, as they are very, very hot. I use my main attraction all the time when I misplace my tweezers. Moving on, I have 2 more card ideas to share in this video. First, I want to demonstrate the offset or shadow foiling. It's a very neat trick that allows you to add faux dimension and interest to a foiled image. I'm going to foil a butterfly on dark gray cardstock and gold foil. Notice that I cut my foil slightly too small and I lack just a little bit to cover the right wing. Now I don't need to recut another large piece of foil. I can just use some scraps to cover that missing part. It's a neat trick and works every time. Add the foil and tape it in place to make sure it stays in place and doesn't move. Now to save time, I've already foiled the sentiment for this card. It's the same one we used on a previous card. This time, however, I wanted to show you that you can dry emboss your foiled images and that adding texture is not going to damage or distort the foil. I'm using the Love Stripe embossing folder from Fun Stamper's Journey and just running it through my die cutting machine to add that lovely texture. And look, the foil is still in place. There's that lovely texture and there's no foil lift off or transfer on the embossing folder. Okay, I've already foiled the butterfly. It looks so beautiful on that gray cardstock. The other cardstock color that I'm using for this card is teal. So the colors are actually Blue Lagoon and Rock Candy from Fun Stamper's Journey. I want to pick the color of foil that resembles that teal color as closely as possible, and that is actually foil in teal. These two look almost identical. So I'm going to use the teal foil to add a second layer onto my butterfly. We foiled in gold first, so the gold is going to make a shadow. Now, we could have used any other color for the shadow. Black looks especially gorgeous. Now, when we are doing the second layer of foil, this time in teal, the teal color will make our top layer. So you foil the shadow first, and then you foil the actual butterfly color. I've placed the butterfly over the original foiled image, and I've shifted it just slightly. You can't really see it, but I moved it just a little bit to have that offset look. And you can move it more or less. It's up to you, whatever look you prefer. I used a piece of washi tape to attach it to the paper as I need to make sure it stays put. And again, I went with my hinge method. Now I can flip the plate away from the paper, add the foil, flip the plate back, and secure everything with another small piece of tape to make sure things stay in place and don't move. I cut the foiling part out to speed things up on video, so we can now take a look at the beautiful foiled piece. Looks gorgeous, especially with that gold shadow. Very different and very unexpected. Now here's the same butterfly foiled in gold on teal paper, so it's just a single layer, and you can see the difference. And here's another example with gold and teal foil foiled on dark gray. I've foam mounted the embossed sentiment panel onto a card base, and now I just need to add the butterfly. I decided to add 2 so that there's more dimension to the wings. For this, I'm using a piece of red tape to adhere the double foiled butterfly onto a single foiled gold butterfly, and next I'm using foam adhesive to foam mount the 2 onto the card. I do like to use tape when adhering things over the foil, as I find it just holds things down better. The butterfly plates also come with 2 small dies that will cut flowers and leaves, and I've already used mine to die cut a small teal flower and a couple of gold leaves for the card. I'm using a glue square to adhere the flowers onto the card. Again, I found that using glue over foil is not the most reliable way to adhere things down, so I prefer to use either strong tape or glue squares. And finally, I added a few gold dots here and there to finish the card. It's very simple, yet classy. My last card for today showcases the gorgeous set of Art Deco border glimmer plates. Here I used one of the borders and foiled it repeatedly to create a background. It took foiling it 8 times to have this modern looking partial foiled background for my card. On this next card, I foiled all 4 borders repeatedly, so the set comes with 4 different borders, and here I used all of them. And I foiled them all in one color, uncolored cardstock, to have a full background. This was much easier to foil and only took foiling the borders 3 times to cover the entire front of the card. Here's another example where I used just one border again and foiled it in 4 different colors of foil for an ombre look. Lastly, this card and background was the hardest to make because it took foiling a single border 12 times to have this gorgeous cascading effect. I think the border set is my favorite from the entire release just because of the amount of options I have with it. I can do different combinations, I can use single borders, use 2 or 3 or 4 borders together, I can foil all in one foil color or different colors. For this card, I'm using Aura foil. It's a very beautiful color. I'm once again using my hinge method. If you don't know what it is, I do have a video tutorial explaining it in detail, and I have it linked right here and in the description box below. Do watch it, as it also shares a lot of other great hot foil tips. Now, those borders are about 6 inches long, so you need to place them like so on your glimmer machine to be able to fit the entire border on your heating platform. Now, if you look closely, you might notice that the plastic on my machine around the heating platform has been dented. That's because I wasn't careful when placing the plates and their edges went outside the heating platform. This doesn't affect at all the quality of the heating or the foiling, but it does leave marks on the plastic. So in case you were wondering what those are, now you know. When I first noticed them, I didn't realize what they were until I then started paying attention as to how I placed the glimmer plates on my platform. I've foiled the piece in my machine, and now let's take a look at the result. Look how gorgeous it turned out. I love it. I'm going to carefully remove the plate, peel the washi tape, and reposition the tape on the paper. This time I've rotated the plate to continue the design. I've taped it in place once again using same piece of tape, added foil, flipped the plate back into position, and taped it again with another piece of foil, or with another piece of tape. You'll need to repeat this about 8 times to have a background like this. Of course, you can have a bigger spacing between the borders, and thus you'll have to foil the border less times to cover the entire card front. You can also overlap the borders if you like, so you do have a lot of options here. To complete this card, I also need to foil flowers, and these come from a different set. There are 2 beautiful flowers, a larger and a smaller flower, and also a leaf. Now, this border didn't foil too well. There's a part missing in the center, so I'm going to refoil it. And I can do this because my glimmer plate was taped in place, and I can easily reposition it to add another foil layer on top. Meanwhile, I'm prepping the flowers and the butterflies to foil next to have embellishments for my cards. And that's how I like to foil. I like to multitask. While one piece is foiling, I'm usually prepping for the next step. Here's a look at the fixed border. it looks so much better this time. I'm going to continue foiling until I have all 8 borders foiled on the background. Now notice that I'm using the grid lines of my paper pad to help me align the border. It's very handy to use some sort of grid when doing these types of backgrounds, as it's not as easy to eyeball things. Now for this card, aside from the flowers, the leaf, and the butterfly, I also want to foil hello. This comes from yet another Glimmer set, and the hello actually has a coordinating die to cut the hello out. This is the main reason why I picked it and wanted to use it for this card. With everything foiled, I trimmed my background at an angle. I like to call this a modern cut, and foam mounted onto an A2 gray card base. Next, I arranged my die-cut foiled pieces and adhered them in place one by one using glue and foam adhesive. I also foiled Sending Love using one of the Spellbinders' previous foil plates. Lastly, I used the gorgeous fashion gold dots to embellish the background. I added a number of dots in between the foil borders and also added some to the flower centers. I hope you enjoyed this video and you'll give these foiling tips and tricks a try. If you do, share and tag me. I love seeing what you guys are making. If you're new here, do subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified about every new upload. Love you guys. I'll see you next week.